are our principal investigators, so they've been leading the project, to tell you a little bit more about the context of PLANET4B, why we decided to go for this funding, what we did, and what are some of the key outcomes and outputs from the project today. So thank you, Alex and Ilkhom. I'll hand over to you.
Lovely. Thanks very much, Geraldine. I'll begin and Ilkhom will continue. So yeah, just to say, also echo my appreciation for all of you being able to join today and your time for this. I'm really looking forward to the discussions that unfold. This is to give a bit of context and background. So PLANET4B has been co-coordinated by myself, by Ilkhom Soliev, who you'll hear from in a moment, and also by Agnes Soliomi, who unfortunately can't be with us today. It's a bit of a shopping list, but the acronym of PLANET4B stands for Plural Values, Intersectionality, Leverage Points, Attitudes, Norms, Behaviours and Social Learning in Transformation for Biodiversity Decision Making. And hopefully we can give all of those words some meaning during the course of today as well. So PLANET4B began in November 2022 and it runs through until the end of October this year. But in many ways, that's also just the beginning of what we're wanting to take forward, including especially through today. So the main motivation for responding to the call was that the focus of the call was stressing that the alarming rates of biodiversity loss are a major, point of fundamental crisis, but also the recognition in the call that we're not going to be able to address this biodiversity crisis unless we really address the societal dimensions of it. So the call is building on the fact that the well-established knowledge that basically if we continue with business as usual scenarios and we continue to consume and produce in the ways that we're doing, then there isn't going to be a future, to put it simply. But also, in order to address this, we need to understand the deeper societal and political drivers which are having such devastating consequences for nature and for societies alike. So the call stressed that we need to have a better understanding of human behaviour, of worldviews, social norms and practices, but also of the institutional arrangements in order to actually try and find a way to adequately prioritise biodiversity, and to do so at the sort of very local level of the individual, at the community level, but also at the regional, national, European and international level. And what we needed to do as part of that is not just talking about all the doom and gloom, but really thinking about identifying and amplifying the amazing positive examples that exist, and doing so by also working with a range of different methods. Research-based interventions is what we call them in the project, to try and extend the good practice that's already happening, but also bring it to the attention of individuals and communities and government. So next, please, Lindy. So PLANET4B basically has two big ambitions. The first one is to better understand how factors such as gender, religion, ethnicity, race, age, culture, disability, norms, values and behaviours all intersect, and also how they do so in a very sort of situated manner. So how it's very affected by where we are, what the places are that we're living and residing in. The second big aim is to really channel its understanding of complexity into the design of different interventions. So like I mentioned, research-based interventions, but also to develop transformative pathways and a series of targeted but also scalable policy recommendations that prioritise biodiversity and halt biodiversity loss. And then the third objective, if you like, which isn't here, but is to actually this point of being able to do it all at the same time. And for us, this was one of the sort of really fundamental challenges, was actually both understanding and doing. The problem, if you just understand, it doesn't lead to any change, but needing to be so careful with both understanding and doing together that you don't end up with unexpected consequences. So next slide, Lindy. And I think we might not be in sharing mode, but we go to next slide, please. So we have some serious heavyweight objects which we're having to tackle with, and very much sort of feeling at times like balancing on a tightrope, including especially all the different, unfortunately, mostly negative geopolitical changes that have happened alongside in the last 3 years. But at the same time, feeling really trusted and privileged with the group that we've been working with in PLANET4B to try and get to the other side. And this brings me on, next slide, to our incredible partnership consortium that we've had, which brings together partners from a range of different academic and practitioner backgrounds, a range of disciplines, and also from the north, south, east and west of Europe. But also what's not reflected on this side is the incredible diversity of people we've worked with alongside. So you'll hear more in a moment about our learning communities and our stakeholder advisory boards that we've worked with. And then next slide. Oh, we're missing a slide. Okay, so I'll pass on now to Ilkhom, but just to say, yeah, so what's really brought us together as a consortium is this universal recognition that decisions about biodiversity are never neutral. They reflect histories, power structures, and lived experiences. And fundamental to this is really thinking and questioning critically who gets to decide, whose knowledge counts, and can we truly protect biodiversity without first confronting inequality? So this is what really brought us together, and this is what helps us start tackling what sometimes feels impossible, but also really recognizing that achieving this impossible is something that here, as I say, we're only at the beginning of, and I really hope through today we can start thinking about ways for taking this forward. So Ilkhom, if I pass over to you to go through the case studies, if that's okay.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Alex. Let me start with that it has been an absolute privilege to be part of this project in the last 3 years. I am also very grateful to the UK team, Coventry University and Dadima for organizing this specific event where we could get together and take the time to talk about how we see ourselves in this biodiversity story that we've been living in the last 3 years. Before delving into more details, my goal now is just to say a little bit to the background information that might be helpful for any external participants and viewers and listeners. Keeping in mind the inspiring introduction from Alex, and also having in the team some of the leading scholars, practitioners, policy experts on the one hand. On the other hand, we also had many people who never had a chance to think or do something about biodiversity. Specifically, we looked at 11 stories of transformation across the project. And on this slide, we were supposed to have 11 pictures appearing one after another, but I think the animation is not maybe working, but I will just introduce them. Okay, it is working.
It's
yes.
working.
So we had 5 so-called intensive place-based cases where we had the chance to experiment, learn in depth what's going on, how we relate to biodiversity. This included enabling outdoor nature recreation for children with disabilities in Oslo, Norway. And then we also have the opening nature to Black, Asian and ethnic minority groups in Central England, UK, which we will discuss today in depth. We had also urban youth, especially those with migration backgrounds in Germany, talking about biodiversity for the first time. We had Swiss case study where we looked at attitudes, especially in the context of religious values and also how that shapes views towards agriculture and biodiversity. We had city food for biodiversity and inclusion in Graz, Austria. And we also had 5 extensive sectoral case studies, so more trying to understand everything in a sectoral lens. This included looking at drivers of biodiversity loss in the fashion industry in Italy, but also with links to the global processes. Also agrobiodiversity management through informal smallholder seed systems in Hungary. Environmental awareness raising in education, also in Hungary. We also looked at agriculture and migration across the European Union. We had a case trade and global value chains, trying to understand the links between Brazil and Netherlands and also the European Union in terms of trade and its impact on biodiversity. And finally, we had the sustainable investment behavior with focus on multiple, from global and European to more specific Norwegian and individual behavioral contexts. So if you are interested in the science of addressing biodiversity loss and also in doing it live with people involved and affected by the decisions at all kinds of levels, it's obvious that this is a dream project to be in. So we had decent time, not enough, but decent time to discuss, debate, to be critical about issues in these case studies. But I'm also glad that thanks to the excellent work in this consortium, we were also able to produce very concrete resources for anyone who wants to understand these complex problems better or would like to take concrete action about solving some of them. Much of the work in the theoretical kind of work in the background, methodological, and also in the case studies contributed to these materials, but then also we had this amazing Coventry teamwork that put everything together in a way that is, I think, practical, appealing, and also thinking about creating this long-term sustainable impact after the project. So with big thanks to everyone for that, I will hand it over back to you, Alex, to introduce some of these resources, please.
Thanks, Ilkhom. And yeah, just to finish by saying, this is the Careful Courses platform that we've developed. We're hoping to launch it towards the end of this month or the beginning of October. So if it's okay, we'll share the link around with this group as well. And if we go to the next slide, please, Lindy. It's going to include a range of different courses targeted at different groups, so policymakers, NGOs, and also looking at business, and then also looking at educational. And it brings together a number of the different methods that you're going to hear about over the course of today, the research-based intervention methods, but also introductory guides to what biodiversity is, to working with and engaging learning communities, and also to understanding and measuring impact. It's one of the sort of key bits that's often really difficult to do when it's just all about numbers, but thinking about different ways in which to measure impact. And if you go to the next slide. And also adjusted, this is adjusted courses for educators, so especially for secondary school children. We've got adjusted material, which includes all download courses and other selected methods and activities that they can do in school classrooms. So that's all part of the platform. And then finally, we'll also be bringing together the methods into a downloadable catalogue of methods, just showing key summaries, but also with links to all the resources online. So that's something we can share if people are hopefully interested later on in this month or next month. And I think that's me done. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Ilkhom. We're not going to, as I said, we're not going to take questions now, but if you have got any immediate questions, if you put them in the Q&A or in the chat, you also have an opportunity to probably talk a little bit more in the breakout rooms. We're going to move swiftly on then to our next presentation, which is from Subash and Geeta, and we're going to start with a short reading from Geeta. So thank you, Subash. Geeta.
Welcome everybody. I'm Geeta from Dadima CIC, and it's lovely to see you all today, particularly some familiar faces. So I'm going to welcome you to today's conference with a short reading from a really special book on my bookshelf called The Intersectional Environmentalist. Now, as individuals and as a learning community in Dadima CIC and the research team, we went on a reading journey over the last 3 years. And those of you who know the nature conservation sector well will know that most of the literature and nature-related books are historically written by white authors. So what we were doing is going back to some Black Indigenous authors and educating ourselves in a different way about nature. We can't save the planet without uplifting the voices of its people, especially those most often unheard. We should care about the protection of people as much as we care about the protection of our planet. To me, these fights are the same. As a society, we often forget that humans are a part of the global ecosystem and that we don't exist separately from nature. We coexist with it each and every day. And what's been really special about PLANET4B is that the people, the culture, the science side have all really connected in a really careful, nuanced and critical way. I'll hand over to Subash.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Subash from Dadima CIC. Thank you very much, Alex and Ilkhom, who've now provided some context of the larger PLANET4B project. What I'd like to do is just spend a few minutes telling you about Dadimas, for those of you that aren't familiar with Dadimas, and then moving on to our case study. So Dadimas, first of all, is the Hindi word for grandma. And we chose that name to represent our company because the word represents grand elders in the widest context. And when we think about grand elders, we normally think about things like wisdom and knowledge. And one of the things that occurred to us that once we lose our grand elders, we lose all of this wisdom and knowledge forever. So initially, we started to capture this knowledge and wisdom through food and life stories and secret recipes of Indian grandmothers. And there in the top left-hand corner, you'll see the cookery book that we produced in 2017, 2018. We then followed that up with producing ancestral food products. But what we found was, in terms of getting our message across, it was labor intensive and time consuming. So in 2020, we turned Dadimas into a community interest company because we wanted to focus on giving something back to our local communities. And our focus then became on walks and talks in the countryside, initially starting in Berkshire and then moving towards Oxfordshire, particularly the Chiltern Hills. Our monthly walks have a theme and speakers, either with a specialist interest or scientific background, or just a passion about a particular subject. Whilst our walks are not exclusive, we try and encourage people from ethnic minority communities to reconnect with nature. Walkers get to share stories and wisdom across generations. We've had children from the age of 3, and we've had grandparents who have been over 80 years old. And they also get to enjoy on many of the walks food and drink that walkers will spontaneously bring along with them. And it gives us all an opportunity to reconnect with nature, but also get some exercise. Our walks range from 6 kilometres to over 20 kilometres. And over the years, we've collaborated with partners, including the Open University, Natural England, and local nature reserves. Next slide, please. In 2022, we were approached by Coventry University to be the case study in the UK with a focus on the relationship between ethnic minority communities and nature, focusing in particular on biodiversity. From our cohort of walkers, Geeta and I invited a number of individuals to take part in the study and form our learning community. We wanted to get a diverse range of individuals, taking into account age, ethnicity, education, religion, housing, etc. With our 11 members of the learning community, we held 5 workshops over the course of approximately 18 months. We used a range of collaborative methods to discuss and explore our understanding of biodiversity and nature. And they included things like the World Cafe concept to discuss specific topics, nature walks, including a visit to Carrie's Secret Garden in Wareham, an exercise called Biodiversity in the Cupboard, which has actually now been turned into one of the resources, educational resources that will be used. We also created a participatory film, which you'll be seeing very shortly, as well as a Spotify music playlist. In addition, Coventry University, as part of the wider project, carried out one-to-one interviews with our learning community. We did some work on systems mapping, looked at leverage points and how we could influence change. And finally, there was an exercise on systemization of experience where we looked back and reflected on the whole journey over the previous 3 years. Thank you. I'll pass over to Geeta. Sorry, Geeta, Geraldine.
Thank you, Subash. Thank you, Geeta. And I should have said that at the beginning, Dadima's have been the perfect partner for us. They've embraced the project, and our partnership has been sort of really rich. And I'm hoping that it continues far into the future. As Subash outlined, we used a range of methods in the project. And one of the things we wanted to do was to capture the process, capture the experiences, and create a space where our participants could share their views and experiences. So one suggestion was to make a participatory film. The idea of a participatory film is that everyone is part of the process, that we sort of democratize research in a way that people can direct the shape, what's included, the messages that come out of some of our discussions, and come together and have a key message that they want to share with others. So we thought it'd be really a valuable thing this morning to share the film that we've made with our participants. All the images and the videos are things that participants have shared with us over the past 18 months or so. So here's our film. I hope you enjoy it.
We can't save the planet without uplifting the voices of its people, especially those most often unheard. We should care about the protection of people as much as we care about the protection of our planet. To me, these fights are the same. As a society, we often forget that humans are a part of our global ecosystem and that we don't exist separately from nature. We coexist with it each and every day.
Our community here has an impact on the outside community when really we can make subtle changes at home but don't really have an impact or a voice in the wider community.
So the funny thing is, I joined the programme and the project thinking I have nothing to contribute to biodiversity, but I'm curious. I want to learn more. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. How can we actually tackle the biodiversity crisis in a way which gets biodiversity at the centre of decision making? This really spoke to us also because the project was bringing together the different sciences and then also ensuring that it wasn't just academics working together. So I realised that we were going to have to bring together a big diversity of case studies to deal with this fact that the biodiversity crisis cuts through everything, but also how do you do it in a way that you have a plurality of different voices and understandings and knowledges.
There's lots of people on Dadima's that we get along really well when we do those walks, and there's different people here that have now become a community, and I feel this group we think very much alike, and
I think people definitely knew each other in there. Like I honestly came without really knowing anyone.
yeah,
I think I knew
just us
you and
really in the walks,
Geeta.
yeah.
Dadima's was originally set up, and the concept was to connect generations. So as I'm getting older, it dawned on us that when our parents or grandparents pass away, all of the knowledge, all of the experience, everything they've gained over their life effectively is lost. As we lose that, we lose a bit of history.
On our walks now, we try to bring biodiversity into the walk.
I suppose I initially wanted to come to the PLANET4B workshops, partly out of curiosity because I didn't know much about biodiversity, and I was quite curious to learn more about it, and I suppose have a bit of a voice in an area that's very much in vogue.
I knew about Dadima's and the work that Geeta was doing, and I just felt that it probably was a really great opportunity to focus attention on minority communities and also draw attention to some of the wonderful work that community-led organisations are actually doing.
I think being with like-minded people, and I think what it has led to me is also noticing more biodiversity and also understanding what's possible, which I had not really thought about. And I feel like even when I went back home to Zimbabwe recently, I was like, wow, every space back home is used to grow.
The community itself has just been a incredible way for us to focus on a goal and reconnect with ourselves.
What I really would like to come out of the work that we're doing with the learning community to see how we can share our learning with the really important work that community-led groups are doing. And they build capacity within communities. They are part of that sustainable community agenda. They give communities the opportunity to have agency over their own lives.
I love the group because I just find it so educational. There are people from all different backgrounds there, and it's lovely. You chat, you meet, but there's also a lot of emphasis on sharing stories.
I felt very unsure. Do I have the right skills? What am I going to contribute to the group? And it was really surprising that you come here and you listen to everybody and you realise how much you do know, but just not the terminology. But you're living it every day, that I choose where I get my coffee beans from to where I dispose of my coffee beans.
What I think the learning community have realised through their journeys is they actually knew far more about biodiversity than they thought. They just weren't using the words. And what I think they are doing more at the end of it is they have managed to join the dots between the concept of biodiversity and their everyday lives. Individuals can actually make change, and we've proved that through this small exercise over the course of 4 or 5 workshops.
I've brought to my conscious the complete awareness of observing everything around me, and also just looking at my own practices around what I consume, but what I buy and what I use inside my own house. So I think my one thing has to be my own awareness.
I think that our message is just as important, and we want to share how important biodiversity is to us.